The views and opinions expressed on this program are those of the participants and do not reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
BronxNet. Your voice, your views, your vision.
Good evening and welcome to Bronx Talk. Tonight in this busy election season, we continue our debate series with the candidates running in the Democratic primary in the 16th City Council District, a seat that has been held for the past 11 years by term-limited council member Helen Foster. It's a district that includes the Bronx neighborhoods of the West Bronx, Morrisania, parts of the South Bronx, Highbridge, and Melrose. As with all of our debates, to ensure balance, we do not accept phone calls during the program, but you can make comments or ask questions by posting them on the Bronx Talk Facebook page or sending an email to us at bronxtalk@hotmail.com. Now let's meet our candidates from left to right. It is Mr. Carlton Berkeley. Good evening, sir. Thank you for joining us. Mr. Pedro Alvarez, thank you, sir, for joining us. Dr. Bola Omotosho, thank you for joining us.
Thank you,
Assemblywoman Vanessa Gibson, thank you for joining us. And Carlos Sierra, thank you, sir, for joining us.
Thank you.
Also, we should mention that Darrell Johnson Jr. sent his regrets. He will not participate tonight. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is how tonight's forum will go. We've extended the total time of Bronx Talk to an hour to make sure that we give voters their best chance to learn all about you. I will direct a question to one candidate. That candidate will respond. After, we'll have a short, free-flowing dialogue between all of the candidates, with the original respondent having the final word. And we will continue our questioning in that manner. As moderator, I will reserve the right to ask a follow-up or move to the next question as necessary. At the end, each candidate will give a 1-minute closing statement. Now, by prior agreement, the first question will be addressed to you, Mr. Berkeley. Thank you again for joining us. You had run for City Council and Assembly in other districts before. So what is this campaign about for you? There's an open seat, we realize that, but do people in the 16th Council District need somebody who wants to run here, there, and everywhere, or really be in the 16th Council District?
Okay, well, originally I'm from Harlem. And that's why in 2008, 2009, I ran for city council in 2008 against Inez Dickens, and then for the assembly because it was an open seat from the Congressman Powell. The reason why I'm running in the Bronx is not because it's an open seat. First of all, if you know my history and my background, I've been all over this city. I include this whole city as part of me representing the people in the city. So I've been living in the Bronx for over 35 years. I do not live in the 16th district, but I always play by the rules. And the rules say that if you are elected or if you win the primary, you have 60 days to move into the district. But I asked the people to look me up and Google me and see what I've been doing all my life. And if I can represent people in different boroughs, then I can run in any borough or any seat that I think I would like to run in.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Others want to weigh in on that notion or idea? You want to say something, Mr. Alvarez? Go ahead.
Yes. In my case, I have been living in the district for, first of all, let me say thank you, BronxNet, for the opportunity to present our proposal to the community, because this is the first time in many years that the City Council District 16 have the opportunity to engage into a dialogue regarding to the issues that matters to the community. And thank you for that opportunity. In my case, I have been living in the district for the past, since 1992, I have been working in the district. And I was able to evolve from coming from the Dominican Republic, speaking no English at all, to learn the English, set up my business, and be able to succeed. And also working in the nonprofit organization and several non-working organizations within the district. Family Life Academy Charter School, from one of the worst performing districts, is one of the top 1% of the state of New York. And that is one of the reasons that bring me here to run for the city council, because we could make the difference and change the things around so we could have a better district. The people wanted to live and stay in the District 16.
Okay, others?
Just wanted to add,
Ms.
I
Gibson,
think it's
sure.
interesting when you look at the dynamics of the 16th Council District and the fact that we've had, the Foster family hold the seat for almost 40 years. When you look at who is going to run for the next 16th District, I think it's interesting to note that it's important that you have consistency and candidates that have lived in the district and worked in the district for quite a number of years. I think it's a little disheartening sometimes when you have candidates that are coming from other communities that do not necessarily understand the challenges of the neighborhood that now choose to run in one district when they've run in other districts. To me, you lose credibility and you lose integrity, and people sometimes think that you are shopping for a district when they are looking in the district to see who has been in the community, who has been working, who has been a leader, who has been a voice, who has been consistently advocating for the people in that district.
Mr. Sierra, go ahead.
Yeah. Mr. Berkeley, I want to thank you for your leadership. I am very familiar with your background. I did Google you, and I think that in the event that I'm not elected, you will make a great councilman. I don't look at boundaries, I look at one community. When it comes to Mr. Alvarez, he has claimed that he has lived in the district, but I don't know if you're aware, Mr. Gary, but one of the reasons why we took him, we challenged him, is that we challenged him based on his residency. For the simple reason that he claims he lives in a facility that was designed for people, especially women, that were abused, victims of domestic violence, and people that are basically coming from low-income background. That particular unit where he lives was designed for people that were coming out of shelter, basically, women.
So we'll let you certainly to respond to that, sir, if you want to.
Definitely. That is the great things about America and living in the district. Because when I got into that apartment I got approved in 1996 when I was going to college, and I didn't have enough resources. And that's why I'm advocating for the affordable housing, because that gave me the opportunity to succeed, to set up my business and move ahead in life, and do the transformation from being a participant of the affordable housing to change things around, to become a successful.
We have a millionaire in the room that's seeking to represent us with multiple assets, properties in New Jersey, properties all over the place, and I just don't understand how you qualify to live on that particular housing unit. I truly don't.
Okay. You're saying that I don't have the right to succeed, to
No, I'm not
come
saying
and
that.
have no money and work hard 7 days a week, go to school, prepare myself, graduate from college, living there. When I have my graduation, that is the opportunity that American has. That's why we have the capacity to work and to lead District 16 to a better one.
What I'm saying is that we have a crisis. People need housing facilities, especially women. And you are occupying a unit that belongs to the working class, especially women that have been abused, and especially people that have been underprivileged.
Okay.
Sure,
go ahead, Mr. Berkeley.
Okay. Vanessa said that running for in other communities, you lose credibility. Well, let me tell you something. Like Mr. Sierra said, I've been an advocate for the people for years. I'm probably one of the oldest ones on the stage, been a lifelong New Yorker. I don't lose any credibility because you can look me up and see where I stand. I don't just go for open seats. But what I do is when people need my help, I go wherever I have to go to help them. I was asked to run in other districts because people trust me. So that's why I'm running in the 16th. And one other reason is because my church, I've been in my church all my life, and my church is in the 16th. district. And that's why, another reason why I'm running. But I lose no credibility.
Thank you very much. Mr. Alvarez, did you want to respond? Because
Okay.
already
No,
we can move on to the next
basically,
question.
that is what made me one of the best candidates for, because everything that I have done has been in the district. And to evolve
Thank
from
you.
being, low income.
Got it. Mr. Berkeley, did you want to say anything? Because you get the final word there. We're okay?
Yes, we're okay.
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 Mr. Alvarez, the next question then for you. The challenges in our education system are monumental. The current mayor has put resources into building up charter schools. You are the chairman of the board of a charter school, as we've already mentioned. While some numbers show charter schools do work, there's no doubt that charters get favored nation status when it comes to funding, and they are not beset with underperforming and challenged students as traditional public schools are. Do we need more charter schools in the 16th Council District, or should we put resources into building stronger traditional public schools?
Okay. The situation is not about a charter or public school. We need better education system. And we have a crisis in the education system because we in the District 9, one of the lowest performing districts, either going to be charter school or public school, either one. There is a lot of myth out there that regarding to the charter school, like a private school. They not private school. They public at school. They perform a different way. The charter is given by the New York State the Board of Trustees, the SUNY, the Department of Education, and they give a charter for 1-2 years. If they don't perform, they close. Therefore, they have a better chance, and the bureaucracy is less cumbersome, so we could have a better education for our children.
Others? Charter schools?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Dr. Omatosho, go ahead.
Well, for charter schools, I think having more charter schools, it's okay. And more importantly, there are certain things that charter schools have been able to do successfully. And even public schools, there are some things they've been able to do successfully. When you look at the recent test results, which were not too favorable, at least to us in the city, it shows that even though the charter school had a little bit of edge in terms of the results that were recently published, but this can still be learned, some things can still be learned from both the charter school and the public school system. But what is key is the involvement of the parents and other expansion of the other programs which are after school, and also to be able to understand that these charter schools have been very helpful as well.
Neither candidate really answered the question yet, and the question was, do we need more charter schools or fewer? We'll go back around, but Ms. Gibson, go ahead.
Well, I think we have to remember why we developed charter schools in the first place. It was about choice. The fact of the matter is that there are 1 million children in our public school systems. We need to reinvest in our traditional public schools. We need to make sure that we have adequate resources, smaller classroom size. We have parents who are engaged, that have a true role in making sure that they are part of the decision-making process. I support charter schools, but the one challenge I have with charter schools is they do not address the most vulnerable students. Students with disabilities, students who are learning English as a second language, and making sure that we're addressing our foreign students. While I support charter schools, I think we have to focus on traditional schools because the message has been lost. We have parents that are dying to get their children in charter schools because the traditional schools have not worked. We have in District 9, contrary to what people think, we have success schools in District 9. We have model schools like PS 199 in Highbridge, like PS 63 in Claremont. We need to use those schools as models for others to follow in the district, so we still focus on public education.
Thank you. Others? Mr. Sierra, go ahead. We'll come back around. Anybody wants to weigh in?
I happen to benefit from attending one of the public schools here in New York, especially the Bronx, and that was Taft High School. And the way I benefited was by really learning how to stay out of trouble. You know, I had to basically dropped out of high school because it was loaded with gang-related activities, unsafe environment, and lack of really support for the students.
Where does that fit in the question of charter schools or traditional public schools?
Well, it fits perfectly because one thing is connected with the other one. You know, there is an attack on the working class, and the attack is simple. Let's not educate their children. And when it comes to the charter school, I do support charter school on one extent, but when it comes to access to charter school, I do not support it the way in which they have access to students through the lottery.
Okay, Mr. Berkeley and then Mr. Alvarez. Sure.
Well, first of all, competition is good. All right. I'm a proud product of public schools. Right. I don't believe in just closing schools because of bad performance, because we all know that education starts at the home. Part of what the traditional schools are going through is because of the mayoral control. We never should have had mayoral control. Answer to your question, should we have more charter schools? If appropriate, yes. But we still need the traditional schools too to survive. Because when our kids don't make it into the charter school, because it's a lottery system, we can't just close the door on them. So we need the traditional schools to still be open, and we need to work with them. We don't need to close them. And I do not always support either one. But whichever one is progressing, like I said, competition is good. So I support them both.
Mr. Alvarez, go ahead.
Okay, to respond directly to your question, yes, I do support the charter school. However, we need the education is in general the well-being of our children, now the educational system. I mean, we need to focus on the performance of the children, because in general, at the end, public charter anyway, we need to have a system that is accountable for it, and also to engage the whole family as a whole, so we could have better community. As the chairman of the board of trustees, we had given 3 different charter schools, and the same they had been saying, just replicate what you had been doing. So we deal with a second language learner. By the 3rd year, they already into the system as a well-performing children.
Okay, great. Anybody else? You want to?
Yes.
Sure, we'll go back around, and then Mr. Alvarez.
We need more charter
final word.
schools. It takes a village to raise a child, and we need more charter schools.
Okay.
And competition is great.
Mr. Sierra first, Ms. Gibson.
Are you going to touch upon the public schools later on, or this is just a setting for both charter and public
You
schools?
can raise whatever issue you'd like.
Okay, well, the reason why I'm bringing it up is because we have a crisis. The mayor has basically proposed to close 20 public schools here in the city, PS 64 being one of them. The Jonathan Levin also school is also being proposed to close, and also 2 others. So, you know, I'm saying over here, where our children are going to be going to, you know, to get an education. If they don't have access to a good, sound basic education through the schools, through the public school system, where are they going to go? You know, so we have a crisis that we have to address, because not everyone has access to the charter school, and that's the bottom line.
Ms. Gibson, go ahead.
Well, I was educated in public schools all my life, so I will never lose my commitment to public traditional schools. I was a staunch opponent of mayoral control when it was passed by the state legislature in 2009. I do not believe that one person should have full control over 1 million school children. I think this has to be a partnership with parents, with teachers, with advocates, with educators. We have to come together, because at the end of the day, this is about educating our future children.
Mr. Alvarez, you get the final word.
Okay, basically the charter school has proven to be good. And not only that, since they could be shut down about the 2nd year of the performance. In the case of our school, we remember in the year 2004 where our parents got a letter saying that they're going to close the school. And myself, back then I was the president of the PTA, and I had to step up to get the school moving around, and we changed. We have 3 different principles. That education, working in that school, gave me the tools that I need to succeed and analyzing the school system in the district, so we could do a better job as a city council.
Thank you very much. Dr. Omotosho, you have been the chair of Community Board 5. An ongoing controversy in the Bronx is control over the community boards and who has the ability to select or reappoint, or not select or not reappoint, community board members. We've seen this in Community Board 9, Community Board 1. It happened in Community Board 4 during the questions over the new Yankee Stadium. So, should community boards rubber stamp for the people who appoint them, or should they be more independent? And is there a better system for selecting community board members?
Well, good. I've been the community board chair now for 6 to 7 years. And the process which it's you selected by the elected officials, city council members who are affiliated to that board, to be specific, and also by the borough president's office. That's the current trend of what we have. But in some other instances, some board members or the community needs to be involved as well, which is a system which will makes it more independent and makes it more friendlier to the community. As a result, the community board is not seen as a rubber stamp or as a stooge or as an endorser of whatever program.
Well, is
or
it
the
appropriate
intention.
for community board members to not be reappointed if they simply disagree with whoever has appointed them? That's
Well,
really
it's
the
not-
fundamental question.
Fundamentally, it's not appropriate. We can agree to disagree, which is part of the training, which is part of what we are there to serve the community, but it's not appropriate. But there might be more to it in most instances why board members are not reappointed for various reasons, not principally because of disagreement in its totality.
Okay. Others?
well, while
Ms.
I-
Gibson first, then Mr. Berkeley. Go ahead.
While I understand that council members and the board president have the opportunity to appoint board members, obviously you should look at the diversity of your community. You should look at leaders in your district that have been working on behalf of your community to make sure that you share the same values and you share the same priority for the community. I don't think it's appropriate to not be reappointed if you happen to disagree with your appointee. I do think there lies area for balance where you have opportunities for other constituents from your district to become board members. I would even entertain having a small working group in my council office that would help me with community board selection, because District 16 is one of the most diverse in the Bronx, and we have to make sure that your appointments are reflective of the community in which you're serving.
I would extend the question, which I did ask at the end of it, is there a better system? As a council member, would you like to see a change in the system, Mr. Berkeley?
Well, look, the last time I looked, we live in a democracy, right? I don't believe that the borough president and council members should be picking people for the board. Let the community, it's called community, right? There is a better system. Let the community pick who they want to represent them, because we all know that when you go against the person who appointed you, you know you're going to be leaving that board. Let's not kid anybody here, all right? So let's let the community pick. That's the way we should do it.
Others?
Yeah,
Mr. Sierra and then Mr. Alvarez.
Again, I happen to agree with Mr. Barkley. We all saw what happened with the Yankee Stadium development and how some of the board members, in a way, were either not reappointed, or there is always a lot of politics behind different developers coming in, and at the end of the day, the reality is that it's all politics, and who end up losing in a lot of time is the working class. So I do believe that we have to come up with a better system to appoint community board members, and that's something that we're going to have to discuss.
Mr. Alvarez?
I'd rather stay with the system that we have with appointment. Since the elected officials that have the opportunity to appoint, they have the accountability to choose someone that is really working. In my case, I had been working since the year 2004 in the Neighborhood Advisory Board number 4, serving every single meeting, and I was able to raise the issue in the case of migration that was now part of the Neighborhood Advisory Board agenda. I brought the topic in because when we did a survey on the street, we found out that there is a migration need, and then we allocate resources for that particular matter.
Let me just ask a follow-up in
Yes.
that circumstance then. Let's just say you advocate for something that you believe in, like charter schools, and because of that advocacy you disagree with whoever it is that appointed you, the borough president or the council member, and then they don't reappoint you. Is that the right system?
That's fine, because you need to play along with the system.
Mr. Dr. Omatosha?
Well,
Oh, no.
the addition to the system,
Mr.
which,
Berkeley didn't like that idea.
Oh, no.
Go ahead.
well, the addition to the system that I would like us to have is to have a quota for the community to also have an input in the selection as well. That's what I would like to see as an addition to it.
All right, Ms. Gibson, voters in New York City have made it clear that they want term limits, and this is a lot of what this election, this debate, and others in the Bronx are about. Voters want change. They want new faces. What's the motivation for you to leave the Assembly and run for the City Council, and is this the change that voters say that they want, to move someone that they're familiar with but to a new spot?
Right. Well, being a member of the New York State Assembly for 4 years has been a great opportunity. Working in a large Democratic conference of over 100 members representing New York State, it's given me an opportunity to really appreciate New York State. It's given me an opportunity to learn to be a policymaker and a legislator. And my reason for running for the City Council is simply put, it's time for change in the city of New York. We have a new wave of leadership coming from the mayor on down to almost half of the city council. And I want to use the experience that I've learned in Albany, 4 years being elected and over 10 years of being an employee of the state, and use that to apply it to the city council to be an asset. We don't have time for on-the-job training. There's a lot at stake in this city, in this economy, with education and housing and economic development, the high unemployment rate, the health and education disparities, and I want to be the person that can be the voice. I have been a voice in Albany for 4 years, and I have been committed. I've been around, and I intend to remain to be the voice and committed in the city council.
Thank you very much. Mr. Sierra?
Assemblywoman, I understand that the Women's Equality Act was passed at the Assembly side.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
It went to the Senate, correct?
Yes. Well,
Yes,
ask
it
your
did in a
question and
different
make
way.
your point.
Okay,
Go ahead.
well, all right. So the question is the following. Why were you not back in Albany fighting for the Women's Equality Act when you should have been the champion of that particular bill, when women, especially women that are being trafficked and women that are being abused right now, when they needed you to step up to the plate and go back to Albany and make sure that that bill was passed back at the Assembly side? Because I do understand that you approved it at the Assembly side once, but it went back to the Assembly and they needed you to be there and you were not there. I just want to know why.
Okay. Well, let me clarify because his statements are incorrect. When the Assembly, before we adjourned on June 21st, the Assembly Democrats led the fight to pass the full 10-point women's equality agenda that was introduced in the State of the State by Governor Cuomo in January. Included in that had issues around domestic violence survivors, around human trafficking and childhood prostitution, supporting women's equality, making sure that women have pay equity and they're not discriminated in the workplace. And we passed that in one omnibus bill. We passed the same bill that Governor Cuomo introduced in January. When we did that, the state Senate individually passed 9 of the 10 bills. And since then, the Assembly nor the Senate has not returned. I am a firm supporter of the 10-point bill, as I am of every individual bill. And when the Assembly and the Senate are called back by the governor in a special session this year, I will return to Albany and support every bill individually or collectively. I'm a firm believer in fighting against discrimination against women because we make up 51% of the population in this state and we are the majority of voters. And this is about equality for all
Thank
women.
you. Mr. Alvarez first.
I just want to know why wasn't she advocating to make sure that that bill was brought back this year in the summertime?
I have been advocating for the bill. I continue to be an advocate. My colleagues and I in the Assembly majority, we are working with the governor. We're working with 49 women's advocacy groups like Planned Parenthood, like National Organization for Women. We are fighting to make sure the challenge is that the state Senate does not want to return and pass the bill in its entirety. Okay. They want us to do it individually.
Mr. Alvarez, then Mr. Berkeley.
That is one of the reasons why I'm running for the city council. Because when I see the argument, the non-productive argument between the members of the part of the, instead of being part of the solution, being part of the problem, that is what I intend to bring to the city council. The solution to the problem that we're having right now. And arguing, discussing, and non-productive argument, it doesn't lead anywhere. We need to have a new leadership that get the solution to the problems.
Mr. Berkeley?
Well, I agree with Mr. Sierra in regards to Vanessa disappearing when the bill was brought back, right? And I also said, while she's been in the Assembly, I have never seen her on the floor introducing any legislation. I've always heard that she will get on the coattail of someone, but she never introduces any of her own. And like Mr. Sierra said, she was missing when the bill was brought back. And let me assure the voters here that if I'm elected as councilman, I will not stay in the seat for a year to jump for another open seat.
And let me clarify, I don't know what bill that these gentlemen are talking about, but the Women's Equality Act bill was not brought back into the legislature. when the State Assembly passed it on June 21st, which was a Friday, and we left that evening, the State Senate shortly thereafter passed 9 individual bills. Since then, up to this point, there has been no bill that has been brought before the legislature. That is not true. And if it was, and if we were called back, I would be there. And according to Mr. Berkeley, I have introduced dozens of bills, and many of my bills have passed the Assembly. I am the largest supporter of bills to fight and combat against lupus, which predominantly affects women of color. I have a lupus awareness day every year in the Assembly, in the state. I support bills to allow our incarcerated men to return back into school when they come out of the correctional facilities. I support all of my legislation and make sure that my bills are passing. And I'm not on anyone's coattails. I have led the fight for nurse-family partnership. I've led the fight for summer youth, putting $25 million in the budget. I have been a firm fighter for children, seniors, and families in this district.
Yeah, so basically my point is, why were you not advocating to make sure that those amendments were brought back? You know, the Assembly, basically you went on vacation or you went, you know, to campaign. So my point is, why were you not out there? Because you were elected to do your job.
The Assembly adjourned.
Mr. Dr. Omotosho?
Well, I just want to react to the fact that learning on the job, I mean, for me, I've been committee board chair, and also the need statements for the community. It's something that I've been doing for the past 6-7 years, and it's not a learning course. It's I'm ready on day one.
Ms. Gibson, you get the final word on that if you'd like to have it.
Well, again,
let me,
I've emphasized, and if I have to repeat it again, women's equality and fighting against discrimination and fighting against pay inequity is something I stand firmly on. I support so many bills in the Assembly, and I will do the same in the City Council. They just embarked on a campaign for living wage, which we know predominantly affects young women of color that are in the domestic workers industry. I stand up for them. I support that, paid sick leave, and all the other bills that we know would improve the quality of life for so many people.
Appreciate it. Mr. Sierra, let's talk about vision for the community. With the Yankee parking garages on the brink of default, there have been discussions and rumors over what might replace them. What would be best? Do you want a pro soccer team there, a hotel, or if there's parkland involved, should it be returned as public recreation space? What is your vision of that part of the Bronx?
Well, I appreciate the question. We do need a lot of sport-related facilities, especially for the youth. I think that we can definitely come up with different ideas and programs and developments that can definitely help the community, especially, you know, we all know that we have a crisis here. The community is under attack. Many of our youth are dropping out of school. We have, you know, a lot of issues when it comes to social services that are needed. So I think,
but how does that interplay? I mean, the question is about what to do with potentially some space that could be available in that part of the Bronx.
Yeah, we can develop a facility that can help the youth, can help the seniors. We can develop a facility there for people with disability. We can do so much. We can develop a school there. You know, we could develop maybe 2 or 3.
Mr. Alvarez, go ahead, and then others who want to respond.
I remember that I was part of the Neighborhood Advisory Board when the topic regarding developing the Yankee Stadium area was up. And we need to have a 5-star hotel so we could get more jobs for the people. That is needed in that area, because we don't have a hotel, a high-quality, high-end hotel that could house the people that come to the Yankee Stadium. And also, we have the developing of the 161st as a downtown area. We need to attract businesses and people that bring new money to the community and more jobs.
If the garages are built on a parkland, you would still insist or still advocate for a hotel? Because some of those garages are on parkland.
Okay, I would, in that case, in that particular area, going to be the similar situation. You're replacing a non-productive that only have one employee managing the whole thing, to the hotel they're going to be employing many people. I'd rather go in that particular case. I'm an advocate of the
Mr. Berkeley,
parkland.
Great, thank you.
Again, why don't we let the community decide, right? We can put a nice multicultural center that can be conducive to the senior citizens, the youth, and everyone else in the community. But again, this is what goes on. Everyone thinks that they have the answer. Look, I don't proclaim to have all the answers, but what I will do, if I'm elected, I will listen to the people. Let the people decide.
Others? Dr. Omatosho, then Ms. Gibson.
Well, we have very few parklands in this community, and that's something, if it's on a parkland, let's make it a parkland. We need open space for our young ones, which is great. If others are not on parkland, let's use it for hotel. We need 5-star hotel, which is great. So we can strike a balance. But the most important thing is to have community involvement.
Right. Well, I would love to have a town hall for the residents in the district to come together to figure out what their idea would be for that land. But in an ideal world, I love the idea of Major League Soccer coming to our community. We have a growing West African community that loves to play soccer. We have the Latino community that loves to play soccer. I think it would make the Bronx, it would set the bar for us. We have the ice hockey arena at the Kingsbridge Armory. Major League Soccer is big for the city of New York. It would be great for the Bronx. And if we can incorporate ways in which we can address the childhood obesity, the asthma rates, and all of the things that our children live with, I think it goes a long way to promote recreational activity.
Mr. Alvarez, go ahead.
In that particular area, remember a few short distance from the coastline that could be developed into parks rather than having the parking garage for the train over there. In that area, we could have moved the parking for the train as a park and have the hotel there that's going to create more jobs and lift the community. That is what we need, economic development right now in order to empower our people.
Mr. Sierra, you get the final word on this if you want to add something.
Well, I am very much pro creating some sort of multi-purpose use facility that can help the youth, that can help the senior, that can help people in need, people with disability, that can help us by maybe building a new school there. But at the end of the day, it's going to be up to the community. We have to make sure that we get community input, and what the community decides, then that's what we should do.
Thank you very much. Mr. Berkeley, today a federal judge found that the NYPD's stop and frisk tactics have violated the constitutional rights of tens of thousands of New Yorkers and called for federal oversight on policy reforms. How should the city's policy be revised so that it doesn't infringe on rights but still is effective in keeping guns off our streets?
Well, I consider myself an expert in this because as a retired New York City detective back in 1984, once I joined the two organizations, the 100 Blacks in Law Enforcement Who Care and the National Latino Officers Association, we told the NYPD that the stop and frisk that was being used was unlawful and a violation of the citizens' Fourth Amendment right, which protect them against unreasonable searches and seizures. And while I did that within the NYPD for 20 years, you know that when you go against your boss and your superiors, you don't have an easy ride. And I didn't have an easy ride. But I told NYPD once I retired, I said, you think that I'm giving you a hard time now while I'm in the department? Wait till I get out. And I continue to fight against any injustice that NYPD inflicts on the minority community. And what that decision from the federal judge said is that I was right along with the two organizations that I was a member of.
So what do we need? How do we keep the streets safe and still not infringe on rights of citizens?
We can go back to community policing and let the police get the proper training that they need to go out here and keep our streets safe.
Okay, others?
Mr.
Alvarez first, and Mr. Sierra, sure.
Okay, taking the part that has been successful, that is stop and frisk. We need to respect the constitutional right of the people. We understand that we need to go to stay focused on respecting the Constitution. However, we have a criminality on the neighborhood that need to be addressed. Therefore, additional training for the police officer. Remember, the police officer, they go and take a training for the general city. It's not the same dynamic in downtown, Queens, Brooklyn, that the one in the Bronx. Therefore, they need to be a specific training for the police officer so they could address the issue and according to neighborhood.
Mr. Sierra, and then Ms. Gibson.
I don't really think it's about training. I think it's about targeting. I haven't stopped and frisked before. You know, what we go through, especially the young people, is sad. It's an abuse. You know, we have an attack over here. They keep attacking the working class. And that have to come to an end, especially our youth. I do understand that we have an issue with crime. I mean, because I'm a father of two. Sometimes I'm afraid to send my son to the grocery store.
So how do you strike a balance so that I mean, that's really what the question is about.
Yeah, it's very simple. I mean, the first thing that we got to do is that we have to hold the mayor and the commissioner accountable so that they don't attack our community, because that's how I feel. And then on the other hand, we have to make sure the police go out and catch the bad guys, because it's not the working classes, it's not a lot of our youth that are out there going to school and being criminalized.
Ms. Gibson, and then Dr. Omotoso.
Well, the first thing I think needs to happen at the City Council is we need to make sure that we implement the Community Safety Act as well as the IG bill that are currently before the council now. And also the training. I think the training needs to be revised. I think many new officers, men and women coming out of the academy, coming into some of the toughest neighborhoods in the city, do not understand the character. They don't understand the neighborhood itself, and they are scared themselves. We need police in our community. We want to see our police, but we don't want them harassing our young men and women simply because of the way they look or what corner they stand on. So the training, to me, has to be revised. I think we need to expand on programs like the Explorers and offer opportunities for young people to have a positive relationship with cops, because unfortunately the only image they have is a negative one. I think we need to reform our marijuana laws, because a lot of young men and women are arrested having low levels of marijuana, and that's something we've been working on. There's a lot of things we can do.
One follow-up, which I'll ask generally, and that is, and we'll give you a chance in a moment, Dr. Omotoso, if we have federal oversight and federal monitoring, do we still need the Inspector General within the city? Dr. Omotoso, that would just be a question I would ask.
Well, we need an oversight on policing in New York City, no doubt about it. Stop and frisks, it's so selective in attacking the young men of color. And we know the outcome of that. It puts a permanent record on their resume, and which makes it very difficult for them down the road to get good jobs. What can we do differently? 1, police training. 2, community involvement. 3, we have to be able to identify, give the police a kind of cultural sensitivity training so that they are aware of what each community is different in terms of how we see ourselves. Well, what is even worse is about the brown-on-brown crime, which unfortunately it may be high on a district, but that does not mean that stop and fix is the solution to it. And that's what I propose, that we should have community involvement.
And that topic has been mandated by federal court to have someone oversee the police actions. Therefore, in there is for our proposal to work as a city council and the education, so we don't have to deal with the criminality that we're facing right now. And that's going to fix the situation at once.
Mr. Berkeley, you get the final word.
Yes,
on that.
I testified on behalf of the IG and the Safety Act. I testified at City Hall, right? People here are saying that the police need more training. Yeah, training has a little bit to do with it. I've never said that we need to do without stop and frisk, because it's a very, very valuable tool. However, it needs to be administered the legal way. And it's hard to teach an officer in the academy how to use stop and frisk. They have to go with their instincts that they were taught. So people here don't know what really needs to be done. I do, because I did it for 20 years. And one other thing that's very important.
Be quick, we want to move on.
One other thing is the police out there, most of the police out there are good, hard-working men and women. They don't want to do what they're doing, but they're being forced by the supervisors, who are also being forced by the people down at City Hall.
Mr. Alvarez, small businesses are complaining that they're overtaxed and overburdened with regulations that they can't overcome, and they're having a hard time surviving, much less serving their function to help get the Bronx working. Give me a perspective for small businesses in the 16th Council District and how they can do better.
Okay, as an accountant that has been dealing with so many small businesses throughout my career, I have a first-hand experience, and one of the situations to address the issue is the language barrier. We have the inspector that they come to their businesses to require some type of specific information, and that is not in the language of the business owner. And since we have a Latino and also Arabic people that they own the business, but we don't have the inspector that can and understand and could translate that the government, the agency are working for the people, helping them, not to harm them. But they don't understand. If there is a communication barrier, then that is one of the issues that are affecting our most small businesses and District 16.
Others? Mr. Sierra first, go ahead.
You know, if you look around the neighborhood and you talk to a lot of the small business owners, you know, you ask if they were basically, if they receive some sort of loan or fund from some sort of governmental agency, and most of them, they're going to tell you that they never received anything. So I think what we should do is that we should really look, especially at the city council level, into the different initiatives that they have out there, that they have when it comes to helping the minority-owned business community. So as a councilman, I'm going to make sure that we bring some of those resources back to the district.
Dr. Omotosho, go ahead.
Small businesses in our community are the fabric of the economy of our community. Most of them are mom and pop stores, but they do not have access to soft loan. What I think should be done is to have a community development financial institution which has some funds deposited, which will break the red tape, makes it easier for the small businesses to access funds to improve their business. On the barrage of summons, which of course they get because of over-regulation, and I call it over-regulation, they are usually targeted. One of it is primarily because of communication barrier, language barrier, and not actually understanding the policy. What I will do as a city council member is to have a committee within my office that will work selectively with the small businesses and to set up a small advisory board so that they come to the table and we're able to break this red tape.
Ms. Gibson?
I do think we need to raise the level of communication. Unfortunately, the city has used small businesses as their cash cows to generate revenue based on fines and regulations. Many of the small businesses don't understand the new regulations, new local laws that are passed by the council, and they're simply struggling to survive. They make up a large portion of the revenue in the council district and in our city. So one of the things I would do is work with the small business services agency, work with Department of Finance that administers all these fines, and make sure that we have a liaison that's working directly with our businesses, understanding that they're diverse, so we do have some barriers to understanding what a lot of the changes are underway, but I think it goes along in making sure that we're strengthening our businesses. I'm a firm supporter of MWBEs, minority women-owned businesses, and the city has a very, very low rate of hiring a lot of our MWBE firms. So I would work to make sure that they're educated and they're in the program.
Mr. Alvarez, you get the final word. Oh, you didn't get it.
No,
So
okay, no.
let's do it, and we're almost out of time, so I want to get one more question in. Go ahead.
If elected as the councilman, I would have my office open to the small business to find out exactly what is it that they need, to make sure that they get the resources that they need to keep their business flowing, because they are the fabric of the community. And another pet peeve is so that they can make the little bit of money that they're working for, we must allow the residents, right, to park for at least 15 to 20 minutes so that they can go in there without the fear of getting a summons, you know, so that they can support the business. That's what we need to do also.
Mr. Alvarez, you get to sum up, and then we're going to be quick on the next question.
The Community Reinvestment Act, CRA, that is for small businesses, so the bank, they have to lend to a specific number of minority and small businesses, and our community in small businesses has been underserved. In my position as a city council, I will make sure that CRA is respected and implemented fully in the whole district.
Dr. Omotosho, we're going to ask everybody to be very quick on this. Let's just briefly, I know we probably need another hour to talk about housing, but talk to me about how to empower tenants so that they are not abused by landlords who run substandard buildings. It's a large topic, and I'm sorry we don't have a lot of time, but let's go through it. We'll start with you, sir.
Well, with housing, I've had a wonderful experience also as a board chair for.
Again, we're asking everybody to be brief. Go ahead.
To empower tenants, one of it is to create a tenant association and empower the tenant association to have the resources that they need and be independent. to also improve the court system, a housing court system, which currently have a lot of backlog. For the court system, we have an organization in the district, which of course help tenants, which is key, but we want to expand on it and provide resources for the tenants.
I'm sure everybody has something to say in housing, so we don't have a lot of time, Ms. Gibson.
Education and awareness, educating tenants on understanding what their rights are as a tenant and what they deserve as tenants. Housing is a right and not a luxury. Rent regulation, affordability, making sure that tenants understand what they are to be given by their landlords is key. Housing organizations, housing groups, tenant advocates, working in Albany, working in the city council, making sure that tenants are equipped with knowledge. Knowledge is power.
Mr. Sierra?
Yeah, definitely. I agree. We have to make sure that we empower the tenants by giving them knowledge, same position as the assemblywoman. But I also think that we have to make sure we have to make sure that we really help the tenants by electing leaders that are going to be standing there with them. They have to come out and make sure the leaders that are going to be there representing them are going to go to City Hall.
I'm sorry, we're just running out of time. I want to get to everybody. Mr.
I
Berkeley?
agree with educating them and then living among them. Not for one day. Stay there for 2 weeks to a month, right? See what they're going through, and then stand with them so that you can testify as a witness to what they're going through.
Mr. Alvarez?
One of the reasons why we are one of the poorest districts in the nation is because of the home ownership, because we have absentee landlords. In my work as a city councilor, we made sure that the dream of having a own house, having a house, is materialized, giving the opportunity to be owner of their houses.
You can be real quick if you want to sum up.
Summing up, education, tenant advocacy, resources, and making sure that the landlords are held accountable.
We're going to go down the row. I'm just going to ask you, I want a two-word answer. Who are you supporting for mayor?
Anyone yet? No one yet.
Bill Thompson.
Undecided.
Eric Salgado.
John Lowe.
There we go. We're at the point in our program where we're going to do a 1 minute closing statement for each, and by prior agreement, we'll start with Mr. Berkeley.
Okay. Listen to the constituents out there. I would love to represent you. I ask you to look me up, Google me, because an educated voter is the best voter. We have a slew of problems facing our community, but one of the most important ones is the police department. We could talk about unemployment, we could talk about education, we could talk about housing. But at the end of the day, you do not want your child or be getting news that your child was killed in the street, especially by NYPD. With what NYPD doing is at the core of the housing, education, and everything else we're going through. I'm asking you to trust me.
15 seconds.
Let's stop going along to get along. This system is not working for us. This Bronx machine must be torn down. We need new leaders. Vanessa Gibson represents the Bronx machine.
Thank you very much.
All right, and we need new leadership.
Thank you very much. Mr. Alvarez?
Hi. It is my commitment to represent the people under District 16, because on the education, affordable housing, on affordable housing ownership, as well as the economic development, we're going to change the district around. But we got to work together and have someone that is proactive and productive. Therefore, I want you to vote for Pedro Alvarez so we could have a better District 16. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Omotosho.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Dr. Bola Omotosho. I'm running for District 16, Councilmatic Street. I am not a professional politician. Neither am I a professional campaigner, but I'm an humanitarian because I care for the people in this district. I understand what it takes to be poor. I'm a son of Africa, and I was born and raised in Nigeria. And I recognize what it takes when you want to move from poverty to success. And that is what I want to be able to do. I do this on a daily basis on a one-to-one person, but now being given the opportunity, I should be able to do it for thousands at a time.
Thank you very much. Ms. Gibson?
Well, I want to thank my constituents in the 77th District for your voice, for allowing me to serve you in the state. I am humbly delighted that we together have worked on so many successes in the district, like the High Bridge Middle School, the first green roof in our county that's a public school, like the new settlement school, fighting for the BX13, fighting against the cuts of the BX18 in Morris Heights. We have stood together to support small businesses, affordable housing. We fought against slum landlords in the district. We have stood together for children, for seniors, individuals with disabilities. I have been with you and I have been consistent. I have lived in this district. I have been around. I will continue to be your voice. I know the value of affordable housing. I'm a renter. I've been around, and I'm asking for your support again for the New York City Council. Vanessa Gibson, and thank you so much for your support.
Mr. Sierra.
I want to thank all the parents out there who helped me and stood side by side with me when we fought against the closing of Pier 64. I want to thank my wife. I want to thank my son, Jean Luis, my baby girl, Camila, for all of their support. I want to be the new voice of the 16th Council District, mainly because we deserve better. We need a fresh start. We need to clean the 16th Council District from the top to the bottom. I'm ready to lead. I'm ready to be the leader on that, but I cannot do it without your support. We need to make sure we get rid of people that are not standing up to the plate when it comes to bringing integrity, when it comes to really fighting for our community. We have to make sure we push them aside because we have a job to do, and we, with the help of God, will win on September 10th. Gracias.
Thank you very much. Candidates, I want to thank you for your participation this evening, and I know you will all agree with me when I remind voters that on September 10th, it's the time to go out and vote, regardless of who you're going to vote for. So we thank each of you for joining us tonight. And folks, if you have further comments or questions on anything you heard on tonight's show or anything going on in the Bronx, then you email them to us at BronxTalk@hotmail.com or make a comment on our Facebook page, and we'll try to get them on the air during a future edition of our program. Archives of the program are available at BronxNet.org. You click Bronx Talk on the right-hand navigation bar. Also become a fan of Bronx Talk on Facebook. Next Monday night, it's the candidates in the Democratic primary in the 17th City Council District, which includes the Bronx neighborhoods of Mott Haven, Melrose, Longwood, Hunts Point, and concourse sections of the Bronx. Incumbent Maria del Carmen Arroyo and challenger Julio Pabon have both been invited to participate. One important note, last week we posted the wrong information for candidate Richie Torres' website. We'll put the correct information on the screen. It is torres2013.com, and we do regret the error. Thank you to our producer, Jane Floro, director Shirley Arrieta. Studio coordinator is Dina Valentin, the cast of thousands around us, and we'll see you next week. Good night.
Dad can be tough.
No. What do you mean she's not coming?
When's the fairy princess coming?
Any minute now.
But when you're willing to do anything...
It is I, Grooves Zinkelpel. Yeah. Okay, time for cake.
It's always worth it.
I know it's really you, Guru. I'm just pretending for the other kids.
The smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life. Take time to be a dad today. Call 877-4DAD-411 or visit fatherhood.gov.